What I'm about to tell you for free cost my clients a lot of money to hear. Let's say you live in a rented house, or even if the house is yours, the analogy still holds true. You've probably never met the proprietor of the property to give you access. The person you dealt with was the agent. So, when people wish to come and have some social visit, you will kindly tell them, come to my place, right? I live at such and such. When government conceives an idea that a road in the interest of public should pass by there, and that road passing by there, you might experience inconvenience. Whom do you think government will need to notify? A, you, the person who will experience inconvenience, or B, the agent, the person with restricted access from the proprietor of the property, or B, C, the government will need to inform the proprietor, or D, the government will need to inform all of you, or C, the government will not need to inform any of you. Let me give you another analogy. Let's say by the grace of God, you have managed to get yourself 1 acre piece of property in Nairobi. And for some strange reason, you have this imagination that you have paid Nairobi Water and Sewer Company enough money. You can drill your own water. Because you have resources and you can also demonstrate, Mr. Guang, I have a title deed to that property. You go and you buy drilling equipment. And so you start drilling. What do you think, in the best case scenario, will happen to you? Another analogy. Let's say that you and your neighbors, for some strange reasons, don't like listening to national broadcast. And so you've discovered that that place where you're living, it's a decent neighborhood. And that decent neighborhood can really use a local broadcasting station. So you conceive an idea, you go, you buy broadcasting equipment, and then tomorrow you start broadcasting. What do you think will happen to you? Those analogies employ something that it's called the doctrine of eminent domain. The doctrine of eminent domain holds that anything that you can see above the surface, anything that you can see under the surface, and everything you can see on the surface to the open heavens all belong to government. Let me give you another interesting interpretation. You are also part of everything that is upon the surface. And that is why when you're born, the government legitimizes your existence by awarding you a birth certificate. So you are an extension of land. You and that parcel of property belong to government. Another analogy. So let's say by the grace of God you own a phone. And this phone is from a manufacturer. And what manufacturers do of late is they will require you to constantly update in order for you to continue enjoying the service of that phone. What do you think will happen the day you say, I've got it up to here, I bought this phone, I don't need any further updates? What do you think will happen? Let me give you another analogy. So let's say you own an automobile. And when you're driving this automobile, you realize that the braking system is defective. The manufacturer also realizes that this braking system is defective, and they employ something called recall. Let me give you a crash course on intellectual property. Recall is an intellectual property facility that enables the manufacturer of a product to always exploit exclusive title on that property. So that is why if your manufacturer realizes that there is something defective with that automobile, they will recall that automobile. At this point, it is important for us to understand two important words. It's very important for us to understand the word own and the word possess. In daily conversations, we use them interchangeably, but these words are worlds apart. To own means An exclusive title that an individual has over a form of property. That is what ownership means. So in order for you to demonstrate ownership, you must give the levels of access you have on a given piece of property. Why do you think we call it property? Because property in intellectual property simply means that anything tangible or intangible that an individual can own, and it must have economic value. So the reason why the manufacturer will regard your phone as their property is because that property represents economic value in their books of account. The reason why the manufacturer of your automobile will always employ recall is because that car, in as much as you're driving it in the highways of Timbuktu or somewhere in Othochirakwom, that car has never left their ownership. That car might have left their factory, but it didn't leave their ownership. That is what it's called eminent domain. The level of access and control and influence an individual has over what they have created. It's the reason why government will bypass all of you and go to the proprietor and say, within such and such duration, we want you out of here. And the government will say, we wish to compensate you. If the individual gets greedy and comes up with ridiculous figures, government will bypass that and can do anything, even without compensation. Why? The government owns that property. It's the reason why you cannot do anything under the surface of where you live. Anything you do under that surface, even if it was to put together a pit latrine, government needs to be informed, because if you can just descend 6 feet, you're encroaching into the private ownership of government. That is the level of awareness that every person who appears at the marketplace must have. How do I ensure that a song I composed never leaves my ownership? How do I ensure that a recipe I have put together never leaves my ownership? How do I ensure that a story that is being narrated never leaves my ownership? How do I ensure that a piece of an architectural blueprint that I put together never leaves my ownership? How do I ensure that a recipe never leaves my ownership? Intellectual property is vast. Intellectual property is in everything. And the most important part in intellectual property is to understand that the person who has originated a thing, that individual has title over that thing. It's the reason why you can enjoy your software, but that software, the manufacturer will tell you, we need you to update it. Let me shock you. Do you know what happens when you register for a trademark? The moment you register for that trademark and the government awards you a title, what it's called a trademark certificate, it gives government the monopoly that when government deems that you don't have the requisite capacity to bring that product into the marketplace, government can withdraw that title from you and give it to someone else. Why? There is this principle in law that whosoever gives similarly retains the power to withdraw. That is why whichever multinational you look out there that are doing incredibly amazing things, they do them under the facility of a trade secret. That is why you can retain what you have beyond the access or the influence of government. Intellectual property is with everyone. Intellectual property is in everything. Just the same way, government can employ the doctrine of eminent domain on a parcel of property. Let me shock you. Do you know that your level of ownership is only 6 feet? And that level of ownership does not go higher than the roof of your house. Did you know that? So the moment you are broadcasting into the open airs of your neighborhood, You are encroaching onto the private property of the state. That is how that doctrine also needs to be employed in private ownership. The doctrine of eminent domain is a double-sided sword. This sword cuts in the interest of government. This sword also cuts in the interest of a private individual that is comprehensively aware of their intellectual property. So whenever you are forced with ownership or possession, always go for ownership. What is ownership? Ownership is that level of exclusive title that you can demonstrate in a form of property. Why do we regard it as property? Because that form of property has at its base economic value. Possession, on the other hand, is merely to enjoy the utility of a thing. You're merely enjoying the utility of that parcel of property that you can have and put your structure there. You're merely enjoying the utility of your phone. That phone is never yours. You can even go ahead and tell me, Mr. Guang, I even have the receipts. You can tell me, Mr. Guang, I even have what it's called a logbook to this car. I own this car. You don't own that car. That car has never left the ownership of the manufacturer. That phone has never left the ownership of the manufacturer. This camera has never left the ownership of the manufacturer. That is the most amazing thing in intellectual property. The mere fact you can show me a title deed, a piece of paper written on by ink, and you tell me that, Mr. Guang, I can demonstrate ownership? No. That ownership is very restricted. It is not even ownership. You only have possession. And that possession is to the extent that government's interest on that parcel of property is not awakened. The moment you awaken that government interest on that parcel of land, they will ask you kindly, consider relocating. If you have arrived to this point, I would really want you to comment in the comment section, Mr. Guang, Doctrine of Eminent Domain. That shows me that you are in the marketplace and you would want me to tell you how you can use that doctrine of eminent domain even in your private capacity. The beauty of law is the law is a tool and the law works according to your level of awareness. It's the reason why whenever we engage in this channel, we engage with without unnecessary legal jargons, because we are not here to understand what was the citation of that judge, what was the ratio decidendi. All we are interested in here is, Mr. Guang, what are those elements of law that I can employ in my private capacity to get ahead? We are living in a time that it's in our best interest to explore avenues to get ahead. One of those avenues that enables me to charge costly for only on my consulting time is helping people understand how they can unlock the doctrine of eminent domain. That doctrine is the thing that gives government power over you and over your property. Government has power over you, and government legitimizes your existence here by awarding you certificate. The day you're born, government will recognize your birth and award you a birth certificate. The day you die, government will recognize that and give you the death certificate. Before you get buried, you must look for burial certificate. Why do you think that is? You belong to government. You belong to the state. What are those things that you have that no one can challenge your exclusive title over? Type in the comment section the doctrine of eminent domain and I will engage with you. My name is Ogwang. I am the principal at Franchise and Licensing Institute. If you enjoyed this type of conversation, they are longer, yes, but if you enjoyed this type of conversation, I would welcome you to kindly consider following. When you follow us, it helps us with the TikTok algorithm to propagate us to wider audiences. I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care. God bless and bye-bye.